Well, thank you, Senator. Thank you for co-sponsoring the bill. We'll hopefully move it through the Senate as quickly as possible. I need to step aside briefly for another committee hearing that's going on to ask questions, so I'm going to pass the gavel to Senator Hessen, but before I do that, Ranking Member Paul is recognized for his questions.
Thank you, and thanks to the panel for being here today. I think we've had a good discussion, pros and cons of AI, how we can kind of control it to make sure it doesn't lead to abuses. But I think as we've, and if you think about potential uses, we had a hearing a month or two ago talking about classified data. We have like 25 million bits of data or something sitting out there. It's supposed to be declassified after 25 years. No humans ever getting to it. We need help, and something like AI could be a great benefit. But as we've talked about different ways to try to control AI, either it's contracting or transparency or this rule or that rule, I think what we're missing is how far apart we actually are. I mean, we think we're all together on let's have some controls, but I don't think we are very much together. If you think about the most basic of rights would be our Bill of Rights. Among the Bill of Rights, the first one is supposed to be one of the most important. The Supreme Court says it has special scrutiny for the First Amendment. And yet we have absolute, complete disagreement on the First Amendment. The idea of whether or not it is in breach of the First Amendment for the FBI and the Department of Homeland Security to meet on a regular basis with Twitter and Facebook and talk about the content, what people are saying, people's speech, and limit that. If you look at the court case, it's worse than that. It's not just talking about or notifying, it's actually threats to say that we may take away your 230 if you don't comply and take down this. The 230 is the liability protection. We may get rid of that. We may institute antitrust rules to try to break your company up, which they're apparently going after Google now anyway. We also may notify the top guy. The president will be informed that you are not taking down this information. But even more than that, I think they went even further. It's my understanding that when Twitter said, oh yeah, we'll take this down, but it's a heck of a lot of work, can you pay us? I think the FBI actually paid them $3 million. Mr. Shellenberger, you comment on, did Twitter take money from the FBI to take down content?
It did. You're absolutely right that happened, and there was some controversy around it because Twitter was being reimbursed for the time that it was spending helping FBI, but nonetheless, it appeared as though Twitter had refused that money previously because they recognized there would be a conflict of interest. And so after the former chief counsel for FBI, Jim Baker, came to Twitter, they changed that policy, and they did take that money from Twitter from the FBI after working with them on this. So it was one of many, what the Fifth Circuit Court recently called a kind of close nexus, which is the kind of thing that you're worried about, a close nexus in terms of censoring content online that we saw, and to see the financial incentives there was very troubling.
And this is sort of what concerns me, because we think, through contracting or through rules or transparency, somehow we're going to control this. When I'm concerned that I don't think there's one Senate Democrat that has criticized the FBI and Department of Homeland Security meeting on a regular basis to discuss taking down speech. You mentioned that already in their algorithms, Mr. Shellenberger, that 99% of it's being taken down through artificial intelligence. You mentioned that a lot of this originated in DARPA. I assume you mean the funding for originating and discovering how to do artificial intelligence? Is that what you're saying came out of DARPA?
Well, yeah, and also, and I didn't get in as much detail about it, but also, obviously, DARPA has been, or maybe not obviously, but in the process of creating deep fakes and then creating technologies to detect those deep fakes. We've also seen, we know there's cases where they're actually identifying persons of interest to be developing deep fakes around. I think there's a set of things going on that people are not aware of that they should be aware of in the development of these technologies. And then there's a civilian or ostensibly civilian process been going on to try to govern these deep fakes, to try to kind of establish some separate authority to decide what's deep fake, what's not, and I think all that should be.
And to point out the problem, though, if DARPA's in charge of a lot of this, they're a small secretive group that won't respond to me. You know, they're the group that was going to fund research in Wuhan to stick a furin cleavage site into a virus, which turns out what COVID looks like, And yet, when I ask them, even today, I've been asking DARPA for that information. They won't give it to me. So now I'm supposed to trust DARPA with artificial intelligence, an agency that won't give me unclassified documents with proper requests. So that's a real danger that DARPA, DITRA, all these defense and intelligence agencies that are developing this to spy on others are so secretive that we don't have oversight. I think they're a government without oversight, and I am worried about that as we move forward, that we're sort of saying, oh yeah, we'll just have oversight, we'll have contracting on it. I'm not against that. I mean, I think that's good. But how can I contract something I don't even know what their budget is? Any comment on the secrecy of DARPA?
The secrecy is, in some ways, it's the main event because, and that's how the censorship had been taking place behind closed doors. It's not job owning. They'd sort of said, there's been this argument that, politicians should be able to get up there and criticize somebody publicly, but that's not what was going on. It was behind the scenes work. I'm actually glad to hear that they've been as unresponsive to you, Senator, as they have been to us. We went to over 50 or around 60 of these organizations, most of which had some sort of government funding to just have a conversation with them about their censorship activities, and not a single one of them agreed to be interviewed. So this is not the kind of transparency you would expect from government contractors.
Thank you, Senator Paul.